Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. It is Saturday, October 19th, and here's what's happening today. Now, before we get going, I want to preface and say that there's more political kinds of events than there are battlefield kind of events. We'll cover a little bit of battlefield, but it's going to be a little bit top heavy that way. 1,380 Russian casualties. Now, that's still high compared to the 1271 highest monthly average, but it's not as high as the 14 and 15 that we saw over the last few days. 8 tanks, 19 armored fighting vehicles, 15 artillery systems, 38 vehicles and fuel tanks. So even these numbers here are lower than they have been. Okay, second, number of Shahed shot down last night, 42 out of 98 Shahed. Like the Russians have been just sending 100 here, or 138, I think was the highest just a few days ago there, or 98 today. 42 out of 98 Shahed shot down, 46 UAVs lost in location. That often means that they were electronically lost, or electronic warfare means. 4 out of 6 KH-59-69 missiles. So it's been a busy night. Okay. This is a really interesting story, not related directly to Ukraine, but Hezbollah UAS that hit Netanyahu's house in Caesarea looks like a Shahed 101 variant. Well, I mean, it makes sense. It's coming from, Shaheds come from Iran, and what's going to Hezbollah is coming from Iran and Syria, and so that makes sense. But there's more connection there than just that. Okay, back to Ukraine. Russians attacked a state emergency service unit in the city of Shikoska, Sumy region. Among the 5 victims who were rescuers. So that's evil and bad. Now, Ukraine was hitting back at Russia. The Kremeny EL plant is a significant player in Russia's microelectronics industry. 2017, 94% of the company's production was reportedly for the needs of the Russian Ministry of Defense, so they targeted this. And here's a little bit more about the Kremeny plant in Bryansk attacked. The plant reportedly produces microelectronics for Panzer air defense systems, Iskander missiles, radar and electronic warfare systems, and Russian UAVs. So that plant was targeted just last night. Okay, Russian intelligence, or the British military intelligence update says that Russia has maintained pressure on the east of Ukraine's Kharkiv Oblast, and they really are. They're threatening Kupiansk. Russian forces are highly likely within several hundred meters of the Oskil River, which is a natural barrier that's going to provide some protection. But once they cross over that, that's going to be problematic for Ukraine. In a narrow salient approximately 20 kilometers south of the town of Kupiansk, it's likely that continued Russian attacks are complicating Ukrainian operations on the east bank of the Oskil. On 15 October 2024, regional Ukrainian authorities ordered the civilian evacuation of several population centers in the area. Russia will likely continue to make gains in the area in the coming weeks. Now, they're pressing along the front in multiple ways, and you can see this on the map from the ISW. Like, look at all the hot spots across the map. I know this is a 3,000-foot overview, but Russia just keeps putting pressure. I think they're putting this pressure because they know that the muddy season and then frost and winter is coming, and they're trying to sort this out now while they still have the opportunity. Okay, let's turn our attention to some political events. This is Anton Gerashenko saying, in 2022, Russia suggested implementing a BRICS currency to end the hegemony of the dollar and the dictatorship of its masters. So they were saying, we're going to have our own currency. And okay, that was a threat, but it didn't really have any impact on the dollar. But yesterday, Putin said that the countries are not ready for it and proposed to consider trading in national currencies. Now, part of the reasons that they trade in the dollar is because the dollar is secure and stable, generally speaking. I mean, it loses some of its value, but not nearly like the loss of some of the value of other countries. And so countries don't necessarily want to trade in each other's currency. At this moment, we are not taking the issue into consideration. It's not ready yet. Talking about the BRIC currency. We need to be very precise. We must proceed in a gradual and unhurried manner. At the moment, we are exploring the possibility of expanding the use of national currencies, creating tools that would make such work secure. I'm not sure what you can do, especially when you're in doing what you're doing to your own economy, which means that the ruble is going to be worth less and perhaps even be devalued over time. Who's going to want to trade with that currency when so they can lose value because of that? Okay, next, Putin at the same forum. The territories for which the Russian soldiers are fighting are ours. Now, this actually it helps us understand Putin's mentality. Putin is against a truce for a week, 2 weeks, or a year in Ukraine. The so-called Istanbul agreements may become the basis. According to Putin, Russia is, quote, ready to continue the fight and victory will be ours, unquote. He also commented on the possibility of Russia's participation in a peace conference in Saudi Arabia. But he said this, quote, the place is comfortable for us. The question is what to discuss, because we're not going to discuss peace, not on your terms at least. Now, listen to the way that he talks about the idea of trading Kursk for Donbass. I don't understand when you talk about swapping territories, because the territories for which our guys are fighting on the battlefield are our territories. These are Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics and Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. Now, so if you have that mentality, why would you trade Kursk for that when it's like trading North Carolina for South Carolina? They're both the United States. Why would we trade that? That's the way that he's thinking about this. And it's actually insightful into understanding how he's thinking. Okay, Lavrov said Russia wants Ukraine outside NATO with a neutral status and without the West using Ukraine to, quote, create direct threats to the Russian Federation, unquote. That means that there's no weapons for Ukraine. Lavrov is essentially saying that Russia wants Ukraine to capitulate. Then Russia would definitely say that they've defeated the West, because Ukrainian defeat would mean the complete crash of the post-1945 global order and security system. Like, they got to come in, smash up the system, get everything that they want. Ukraine gets nothing. And what has that done? There was a commentator the other day, I think it was at the Atlantic Security Forum, that said Ukraine is the issue, but Ukraine's not just the issue. There's a broader issue. They're using Ukraine to smash the international architecture. And I think that's actually pretty fair. That's what's happening here. It would mean that Russia would definitely move forward and start new wars, and not just Russia, there's other bad actors out there. Okay, the U.S. voted a $10 million reward for information about organizers of the Russian media Rybar. Rybar is a project accused of engaging in the U.S. election and propaganda related to that. Rybar is a Russian media organization previously funded by the deceased Russian mogul Yevgeny Prigozhin, leader of Wagner. Rybar relies on connections and funding from Rostec to bolster Russia's military capabilities and advance pro-Russian and anti-Western narratives. Now, if you've been around in this informational space in Ukraine for some time, you've heard Rybar said this or whatever, and so you can hear what's being said on the other side. But I just found that was interesting, that they actually do have a $10 million reward for information leading to the identification or location of any foreign person, including a foreign entity who knowingly engages or is engaging in interference in U.S. elections. Yeah, and they're talking about Rybar here. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, Senator Roger Wicker. He's the Republican ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. He's talking about how in the last 90 days of his term, Biden really needs to step it up and make a substantial difference. And he offers his strategies, and they're all pretty aggressive to like help Ukraine with this, help Ukraine with that. But we're going to see for real what Biden actually thinks. If we get to the end of this election and the day after the election, Biden is allowing Zelensky to fire missiles into Russia, okay, then it was about the election. If we get to after this election and nothing changes between then and the end of his term, Biden was just scared of he was deterred by Putin and scared of escalating. And we'll see. After the election, we'll see what really happened. Okay, I put this out on my community tab. I said, based on everything Biden has done or not done after the election, he will allow Ukraine to strike Russia with American missiles? 43% of you said that. Or he will do what he's done so far? 57%. So the majority of you think that he's just going to continue doing what he's doing. And as much as you want to hope that he's not allowing Ukraine to use these missiles just because of the election, I know many of you hope that. I don't know that that's the case, but we'll find out after the election. Okay, last little bit here. We're going to see Zelensky talking about 95 of our people are home again. These are warriors who defended Mariupol and Azovstal, as well as Donetsk and Luhansk, Kharkiv, Kyiv, Chernihiv, Kherson regions. Each time Ukraine rescues its people from Russian captivity, we bring closer the day when freedom will be returned to all those held in Russian captivity. So these are 95 soldiers that have returned home. A little bit more with these pictures. 95 of our warriors return from Russian captivity, soldiers of the National Guard, Navy, Armed Forces, State Border Guard, and they're welcoming them home. Again, here's some video of the same thing. I'm sure they're glad to be home. I'm sure their loved ones are just thrilled to see them. But there's this comment here by Anton Gurashenko: all will need rehabilitation and treatment after the horrors that they endured in Russian captivity. And I'm sure that's true. The statistics that I've seen about the percentage of Ukrainians that have been tortured under Russian captivity are just staggering, in the 90+ percentages. Okay. Happy anniversary to Alaska becoming a U.S. territory in 1897 after its purchase from Russia. I once joked that feckless U.S. politicians might give it back to appease Putin. Now I wonder if they do anything but be very concerned. Yeah, that hits a little bit too close to home. I think that's kind of how they would play that. Here's another meme. This is Andrew Perpetua. Ukraine destroying Russian airfields? No, we can't have that. Ground war with North Korea? Sure. Yeah. All right, my friends, that's all that we have. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.